Okay, is everybody ready? Let's begin. So, hello everyone. Welcome to the 2022 COUHR London Summer Research Program Info Session. My name is Oliver, and I will be your coordinator of research affairs this year.
My name is Emil. I am one of the academic directors this year.
Hi everyone, my name is Kushbir. I'm also one of the academic directors this year.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you all. And again, I hope you've all been having a great night so far. We'd love to see some of more of your faces, but with that out of the way, let's get the show on the road. And now, as you see in front of you, these are some of the graphics put out by our awesome marketing team and graphics team, how this event will center around how you can get published and involved in independent research. And on the right, you'll notice two beautiful faces. Dr. Ansari, unfortunately, cannot make it tonight, but Dr. Facundo Garcia Borison is in the waiting room right now, and he will be speaking on the projects he will be offering you guys this summer. If this is your first time getting to know us, we are COUHR London. COUHR, C-O-U-H-R, stands for the Canadian Organization for Undergraduate Health Research. This is actually a national organization, and we're only just one of its branches located right here in London at West University. And our main goal is to help provide research opportunities to underrepresented students. And before I continue, you might have a question, what does underrepresentation mean? Well, it's really whatever label you put on it. Underrepresentation can mean anything from ranging from your cultural background, your language proficiency, your academics, anything. So make this program about you. We are here to serve you. On top of that, we also will offer you guys events, workshops to teach you all how to improve skills that can be useful for research. And in addition, you might have seen on Instagram some of our infographics. These are based on very rigorous literature reviews intended to make science more accessible to a lay audience, or even you guys who are very passionate about science, as I can tell by your attendance at this event. These are the things that combine pictures with words to make a medium that's way cooler and way more approachable than just a wall of words you see a lot today in today's scientific literature.
So some of the things that we hope that you'll gain from this event are the following. So we hope that you can broaden your horizons to independent research opportunities, especially for people who haven't had the chance to get their foot in the door for research, or might be just starting to get some idea of what type of research fields they want to go into. I think this is a great way to start. We'll also have you meet one of the professors, as Oliver mentioned, Dr. Garcia, that you can work with, potentially work with in this summer program. And then finally, if you have any questions, which I'm sure a lot of you guys do about the COUHR Summer Research Program, we're here to help you out on those aspects as well.
Thank you, Emil. That being said, I'm going to give you all a quick rundown of the Summer Research Program this year. This is a 16-week program from May to August, so you guys are going to have plenty of time to do research, develop your research skills, ask questions, learn from the very best Weston's got to offer. And this will be a remote opportunity. So don't worry if you are one of those people who don't live in London or Ontario for that matter, you won't have to worry about walking to a lab every day. Maybe the only concern you'll bump into is time zones, but this is the best we can offer you. And the subjects we'll be covering this summer are clinical epidemiology and also numerical cognition. I'm going to leave that up to you guys to guess who those two subjects are matched to. Some EOI viewers may have already noticed from the graphic the matching there. And it'll be an effort of working with a team of students. You guys will be working in groups with each other. Collaboratively, you'll be working with your mentors and of course your wonderful PIs to conduct research. And at the end, you get a cool certificate. But not only will you get a certificate, you'll also be getting an opportunity to present at our national symposium. So think about this, guys. Let us think in for a moment. You'll be presenting to an entire country that represents an audience that represents an entire country. Got those two mixed up briefly. And or published an abstract. So if you guys get far enough, you guys are going to get out there even more. And if you guys are, this is a question we get a lot. If you guys are wondering about the time commitment of this program, it'll take around 20 hours a week. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest speaker for tonight, our very, very esteemed guest speaker. That is Dr. Garcia. Before Dr. Garcia, you blow us away with your speech. I'm going to briefly give an introduction. Dr. Garcia is the holder of both an MD and a PhD. He's very passionate about pharmacology and pediatrics, hence why he is part of the Division of Pediatric Clinical Pharmacology in the Department of Pediatrics here at West University. Take it away, Dr. Garcia.
Thanks a lot for the kind introduction, and thanks a lot for the picture. I think it's a bit, stretch upwards. I have a lot fatter than that picture. Let's let you believe. So thank you very much for the invitation, and I think I'll give you a bit of an overview. I'm a pediatrician. I'm also a clinical pharmacologist. So I work and I do research in medications for children and for pregnant women too, and particularly in the safety of medications used in children and in pregnant women. I work at Victoria Hospital at the London Health Sciences Center. I'm from Argentina originally. I've been around a bit. I did research in Montreal. I did one of my fellowships at COUHR in Toronto. Then I went back to Argentina, where I did research in pediatric pharmacology or pediatric medications for neglected diseases. Now here in London, I've been here since 2009, back here since 2019. And my current lines of research are focused on medications or new medications for rare diseases, and also on the safety of medications in pregnancy in general. So I have a lab with an obstetrician where we study drug transfer across the placenta, and I have a collaboration with other physicians, other pediatricians, mostly that work with patients who have rare diseases. One of my interests is systematic reviews. I think it should be the interest of everyone who does research, and no research should start without doing some form of systematic review beforehand to make sure that nobody else has done what you're trying to do, and to get a better idea of what the information or the data on your idea is out there. In last year, we did with two different groups from COUHR, we did two systematic reviews, which are still to some extent ongoing. One group is writing the paper actually. The other group is a bit stuck because they've had other stuff to do, but they're hopefully they will finish their systematic review soon to be able to publish it. Ideally, the final product should be a publication or at least an abstract or presentation. There will be a presentation to the COUHR meeting for sure, but ideally should go beyond that, and the data, whatever the product of the systematic review is should be at least presented in a meeting, but hopefully published as a paper. I don't know. Do you want me to go to mention a few of the topics that I had in mind, or do you want to have questions? I don't know. Oliver, you seem to be the master of ceremonies here, so let me know what you want to do.
Sure, Doctor. Feel free to go ahead with the topics. I'm sure we'd all love to hear about them.
Okay.
And then after you elaborate a little bit, we can have a little bit of question session, and feel free to leave whenever I know you have the right.
Okay, so there are a few potential topics that we could use to do systematic review. I think this year I can probably take one group instead of two, like I did last year, because I have a bunch of other things to do, and with COVID kind of winding down, there's a lot of things that have been delayed, and I have to catch up with a lot of work. But so I think that ideally. The group of 3 or 4 students would work on the systematic review. There are a few topics to choose for. Many of them have to do with drug adverse reactions in children. So the main topic I had in mind was to do a systematic review of the adverse drug reactions associated to ketamine use in children. Ketamine is a drug that is used for anesthesia. I mean, it's a drug. It's a party drug to some extent. It's also potent anesthetic. That it's used, was used in the past for animal medicine, so veterinary medicine, but it's also, especially now, it's used a lot for anesthesia and for pain management and for procedural pain control. It's used in adults, and it's also used in children a bit more recently. One of the problems with ketamine is that it can produce hallucinations, which is why people use it in parties, but in patients it's not that much fun to have someone having hallucinations while trying to have pain control. One of the general preconceptions in pediatrics is that children don't really have a lot of side effects, including that they don't have psychiatric side effects. associated to ketamine. I don't think that's well demonstrated, even though there are several studies done on ketamine. So ideally, we would collect all the studies, especially the randomized clinical trials that have been done comparing ketamine to other analgesics, and look specifically at the side effects that were reported, and ideally collect them. We might be able to meta-analyze them, depending on how many papers we find. So that would be one potential topic. If that's not of interest, then there's some other topics on the effects of certain medications on the developing baby. There are a few medications that are used for, especially for heart conditions in the mother, that are not, for which there's not a lot of information available on how safe they are to the baby, but there are case reports and case series here and there, and it would be good to find all of them and then put them together to get a better idea of how dangerous these medications are. One of them is called amiodarone, but there are a few others that we could meta-analyze, or sorry, do systematic review on. So those are the main two general areas. Maybe no adverse drug reactions in children, and the other one would be adverse drug reactions to the fetus, of maternal medications to the fetus. The specific topic could be, for example, ketamine, but there are a few other potential alternatives too, depending on, it's possible that when we actually look at what's out there, other people may have started already systematic reviews. I don't think so, because I checked a while ago, but it's still important to check again. So we might have to tweak the topic a bit, but it's along those lines.
Thank you very much, Dr. Garcia. Now, with that being said, does anybody have any questions? Well, actually, before we get into the questions, I just want to summarize what you said, and Dr. Garcia, feel free to correct me, but if you guys are interested in applying for Dr. Garcia's project, you'll find yourselves doing a systematic review project concerning a lot of information about pediatric research on drug safety in childhood and child development. So a lot about how kids end up growing up, or even scaling it back a bit, how drugs taken by the mother affect children with fetus.
Sorry, Oliver, I think someone had their hand raised.
Oh yeah, I can't see that on my screen right now, but feel free to go ahead with your question, whoever had their hand raised. Sorry, I missed you.
Sorry, so can this be, can psych students participate in this kind of research?
I have no problem with that, as long as it's something that you feel comfortable with. A lot of the research, it requires a little bit of understanding of drugs and drug adverse reactions. It's not a lot, so from my perspective, I have no problem. It depends a lot on whether you feel comfortable with working with the topic of medications on children.
I think Tiger had a question.
Yeah, I just had a quick question about the second topic of research, which was the effect of drugs on the mother and then towards the fetus. Is it more so focused on the effects of the fetus, or are we also looking at how these drugs affect the mother as well?
No, so we're looking mostly at the effects of the medication on the baby, on the fetus and the baby after birth. So the effect of medications used in pregnancy to the mother is also an interesting topic, but it's not really my area of research. It's more along the lines of what obstetricians do. I'm mostly concerned about what the effects are on the baby, which is the area where there's basically not much published for many drugs. And this is part of what I do as a researcher too.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
No problem. So I think there's a few questions about what I'm looking for in a prospective student. Basically, people who are interested in doing research, especially spending time doing, looking at the literature, summarizing, collecting it, and ideally who have time, hopefully, to eventually write a paper too. The requirement for background it has to have some health sciences background. Engineering student would hardly be appropriate for drug research. But as long as these are not topics that for which you need a lot of medical background to be able to do. So when I talk about adverse drug reactions, they are usually easy to define. So, and the papers, especially the randomized control clinical trials or the clinical trials, would have a good description. So if we're looking for hallucinations, it would say hallucinations. If we're looking for the low blood pressure or low heart frequency or other complications, that those would be, there would be a few categories or a few key names that you might have to learn and know what you're looking for. But it's not a very difficult thing to learn relatively quickly. So anyone who's interested in health research should be good to apply. There are some requirements by COUHR, which probably Oliver can tell you better than I can. And I think there's a sort of a screening process that the COUHR group just puts together. But from my perspective, I'm picky. I think somebody else had raised their hand.
If you raise your hand, feel free to go ahead.
Hmm.
Don't be shy. We don't bite.
I think it's Miriam. Yeah.
Okay, so I understand we're going to be doing a lot of reviewing, right? Are we going to be spending like time in lab? Like how much time would you say, if at all?
No, this would be a basic, purely a systematic review. So that means, defining writing the protocol for the systematic review, collecting the papers, reviewing the papers. So there's no lab work involved here. Okay. So yeah, all systematic reviews are basically computer-based research. You collect the publications of other people and use that as a raw material for your review. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Very quickly, Dr. Garcia's projects, both projects we'll be offering this year will be remote projects, so don't even worry about having to commute or anything. We've got you covered. And then, and to address your point about our screening process, Dr. Garcia, last year we did limit your project to general science students and medical science students. And I know because you're very busy this week, we didn't have a good chance to talk about this, but if you yourself aren't picky, I don't see why we can't involve students from faculties such as general science, again, medical sciences, psychology, and health sciences, because I believe they have the necessary health science background.
As long as people feel comfortable with the topic, that's okay with me. And okay. Actually, even if you're a psychology student, for example, many of these things will come up in future training and future dealing with even with patients or with the health literature in general. So if you're talking about, I don't know, patients with psychiatric issues or psychological problems or issues, many of them will be taking medications, and actually everybody has some experience with medications and side effects to begin with, even if you're whatever, a veterinarian student or engineering student, you've taken ibuprofen at some point in your life or acetaminophen, and people have told you what the side effects may be, what may happen if don't take it properly, etc. So everybody has some degree of health background or health knowledge that is useful for this, and the learning curve is not very steep to be able to do these kind of projects.
Sounds good. Then I think our job now is to diversify the admissions criteria so that we can encompass a wider array of interests. Does anybody else have any questions? I know, Dr. Garcia, you said you're running on a tight schedule tonight, so feel free to take your leave whenever you want.
Okay. Does anyone have any final question for me?
Yeah, before Dr. Garcia leaves, going once, going twice, you guys feel free.
Okay, if there are any questions later on, maybe they can send them to Oliver or to COUHR, and they can send them to me, and we can email.
For sure, yeah. On our later slide, I think we addressed that, and also we do mention how you can get in touch with us on the application form. So we've got that covered. Thank you so much for coming tonight,
Okay.
Doctor.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Okay. Have a good night.
Take care.
Bye.
How do you guys feel about that? It's very rare that we get such a detailed glimpse into the research of professors at an event like this. And we're very fortunate to have someone like Dr. Garcia, who not only helped guide us through the program last year, but is also just as eager to help you guys this year. So we're very fortunate to have someone like him on board, and just shows the level of passion you'll be working with. And we hope that you will express the same level of passion as his. Now, moving on to our next professor.
Great. So as Oliver mentioned before, Dr. Daniel Ansari was not able to attend due to his personal reasons, but I'll give a quick little summary of his research and his background. So Dr. Daniel Ansari is part of the Faculty of Education and the Department of Psychology. So I know a lot of students in this call are psychology students, so this might be a great opportunity for you guys as well. Specifically, he is the Canada Research Chair in Developmental Cognitive Neuroscience in the Brain and Mind Institute. And specifically, he also leads the Numerical Cognition Laboratory here at Western. And just like Dr. Garcia, Dr. Ansari also is a very well-established researcher, having over 100 published articles in very well-established peer-reviewed journals. So we're really excited to have him as well. Excited. So in terms of a quick or review of what he might want to expect in his project. Dr. Ansari's project is heavily based around data analysis. So a lot of the data analysis that the students would be conducting is based around understanding the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on students' educational achievement. So pretty much Dr. Ansari's group, they are the Numerical Cognition Laboratory. They collected a lot of data from about 900 teachers in the United States and Canada. And our students that are going to be working with Dr. Ansari will have the opportunity to work together as well as work individually to formulate interesting research questions that can have meaningful conclusions that is reflective of the data. And a lot of the data analysis that the students can expect to do, they would use softwares that can be as easy to use as Excel or other software such as RStudios, JASP, and etc. And of course, this can depend on Dr. Daniel Ansari's own statistical preferences, but obviously there's going to be a lot of involvement by us and other scientific directors who will help you guys through the statistical data analysis process as well and try to help you guys out there.
All right, so if you are selected to be a part of the next cohort of students, we have a few learning objectives that we hope to transfer. The main one is to apply the scientific method within the clinical or educational context, as well as work as a team to produce meaningful data and learn soft skills that you will be able to apply in this research program as well as outside this research program. You guys will learn how to be responsible for achieving high standards of ethics and precision in your research. Also learn how to use the current literature and knowledge to interpret your research. And finally, at the end of it all, construct your own research narrative by understanding and going through the peer review publication process. Next slide, please.
I'm going to stop you very quickly, COUHR, because we have a question.
I'm sorry if I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but I was
good.
wondering if are we able to apply for both projects, or is there a cap, like we're only limited to one?
You can definitely apply to both projects as long as you meet the criteria for faculty.
Okay, perfect.
Yep. Thank you, Miriam. All right.
Next slide, please. Oliver, that's you.
Sorry, repeat that.
Oh, that's you. This one's you.
One sec, let me, okay, I had a brief audio issue there.
Yeah,
Do you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. So here's what we'll be expecting from you guys. As I mentioned before, you guys are going to have to learn how to work in a team in a research setting. And you'll be surprised. I know some of you out there like to be low wolves and do research by yourself. Of course, you are the only person you have to answer to in that context. But think about the insights that others can offer. Think about how you'll be working with people outside your faculty and the fresh perspectives they will bring. Together, you'll be setting and meeting deadlines, of course. And in the meantime, when you guys aren't working together, you're going to be working independently. But also, don't forget to take initiative to meet your weekly and monthly goals. If you notice that your team is lagging behind, don't feel afraid to step up and be the leader. Trust me, your teammates will appreciate it in the end. Next up, we do have regular meetings, whether it's going to be with us, the core team, or with Dr. Garcia. We want to make sure you guys are doing well. And if you guys aren't doing well, we want to make sure we have proper, honest, very transparent communication so we can help you guys do better. In addition to when Dr. Garcia isn't available to teach you guys the basics and fundamentals, we will be holding workshops to teach you guys skills, as Mia mentioned, such as RStudio, JASP, or whatever Dr. Ansari and Dr. Garcia choose to use. And the next point, just a recap of my previous one, in that we expect you guys to correspond with us and your supervisors in as timely a manner as possible, because again, we want you guys to do your best. We want you guys to help you guys do your best, and we want you guys to walk away with a great experience. And that's the last point right there. We want you guys to have as impactful a research experience as possible, involving hard skills, soft skills, mastery of different research tools commonly used across the world, and hopefully a greater appreciation for scientific literature and data.
All right, so I think a lot of you guys were wondering what would be kind of like the criteria for applying for the COUHR Summer Research Program. Now, of course, initially we were thinking of having Dr. Garcia's team of students be part of the science and basic medical science programs. But of course, as we've heard from Dr. Garcia himself, he's pretty open as long as, of course, the interest comes from the student themselves. So we'll also keep it open to various programs as well. For Dr. Ansari's project as well, he's very open to a wide variety of faculties, so long as there's the same level of interest for his project, as well as the same level of commitment. In terms of grades and cumulative GPA, we do expect our students to have a cumulative GPA of at least 3.7 or about 80% or higher. And you can also have us send your unofficial transcript within the application form, which you can find in your web academic report in Student Center, as well as a one-page resume. And of course, since our COUHR Summer Research Program is catered specifically towards those that have not gotten yet any sort of experience or have just had a little taste of research so far, we do try to give preference to those that are underrepresented or just are trying to get some of that research experience to get an idea of where they want to do research in the future. And then the final requirement is, since this is a pretty volunteer-based research program, we do expect that the students would not be holding any sort of research grants, such as NSERC USRA, JUROP, USRI, or any other research funding as well.
So I had the pleasure of being a part of COUHR's first run at the research program last summer. And alongside my other peers, we were able to come up with this poster, which was presented at the National Symposium Oliver mentioned earlier. And we hope that the next cohort of students are able to meet those standards and in fact exceed those standards this summer. It was a really rewarding experience as we went from formulating a research question to screening over 1,000 articles and then extracting information and presenting that data. And we hope to complete a manuscript to submit to a scientific journal within the foreseeable future. It is also worth mentioning that a lot of team effort went into this, a lot of coordination for teamwork, as well as working with the librarians out Western and the principal investigator to develop a sound methodology so that our results are reliable and precise. Next slide, please. Now, if you're selected to be a part of the next cohort of students, specifically with Dr. Garcia, you'll find yourself doing a systematic review. And just to give some background on what a systematic review is and the process we went through last summer, which could also look like your summer, we first began with determining a research question like any other research project. And since we were doing a systematic review, we had to complete a protocol, which took about a month to complete. It involved a lot of going back and forth with the PI, as well as working with the librarian to develop a search strategy. Once we completed the protocol, we submitted to Prospero, which is an international database of prospectively registered systematic reviews and with health-related outcomes. We then conducted research, screened 2 studies, extracted data, analyzed it, and made our conclusions, which was presentable at the symposium. Next slide, please.
Before we go on to the next slide, Emil, do you want to give a small overview of the data analysis?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of Dr. Ansari's timeline, a lot of the timeline really is flexible. It just depends on how the progress is going. So of course you have a data set already ready for you that was collected by his lab. It's all about how well you and the rest of your peers alongside Dr. Ansari are able to generate a meaningful question that you can support as well as analyze using the data. So in terms of the timeline, you can expect to, of course, have the initial phase be primarily about making a meaningful research question. And then, of course, that will be followed by revision of that research question, as well as analyzing the data to help come up with some meaningful conclusions with respect to that question. So it's much more flexible, as you can see, and it really depends on your progress.
Thanks, guys. Now, at this time, I noticed we have 3 more messages in the chat. Guys, sit tight. We're going to hold off on all questions because we actually have a dedicated question period at the end. So hold on to those questions. We'll be with you shortly.
Now, if you've made it this far into the event, we're hoping you're wondering how you could be a part of the next cohort of students. So we tried to keep the application really straightforward and accessible to give all applicants an equal opportunity. Although it is very competitive and we do expect a high volume of applicants, as last year we had just under 100 applicants. We will be asking you guys some basic background information, your GPA, your transcripts, and a 1-page resume, emphasis on 1 page. We also have 3 short essay questions. The first one is a statement of research interest. We just want to know what kind of research you're interested in, what drives you into it, and why you want to do it. The second question is a statement of interest in scientific integrity. Now, these days, it is not that hard to distribute and disseminate information that is false and anything but the truth. So this can have extreme ramifications. So it is important for us to know that you understand the importance of accurate dissemination of scientific information. And the last question we have is a statement of underrepresentation. Now, at COUHR, we often get the question, who is considered underrepresented? What is underrepresented? And it is really hard to define simply because everyone comes from a different walk of life and everyone has different experiences. So with this question, we will give you guys a chance to tell us how you have felt underrepresented in the community and how you have overcome this adversity.
All right, great. So now we're pretty much almost at the end of the presentation. And of course, this is where we have the questions from you guys. If you do end up not having any questions at the moment, but have some questions later on, feel free to email us at couhlrlondon@gmail.com for both Dr. Garcia as well as Dr. Ansari as projects respectively. So the floor is now open to you guys for any of your questions. Okay, we'll go first with Zuha.
Hi, I was just looking over the application and I had 2 questions. My first is I was wondering the timeline. So like when is the application due and when do you guys expect to kind of finalize your decision about who you're picking? And my second is just to confirm that whether or not students will be compensated for it. And I believe you guys said it was a volunteer position.
Okay, Zuha, I'm going to answer your first question, but you're going to have to repeat your second one later because I think you're in a pretty echoey room right now, so I can hear it clearly. But for your first question, timeline-wise, we're going to reveal it in the very next slide. Since you asked, we are going to be making the application go live tonight, and we're going to be closing the application at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 23rd of this month. And you can expect to hear your final decision around the end of or halfway into, let's say, the second week of April. Can you repeat your second question?
Thank you. I was just wondering if students will be compensated for their work.
Oh, this is the COUHR Summer Research Program is a purely volunteer-based program. So unfortunately, we don't have any funding for you, but the true value is in the experiences you'll be taking away.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have the chat open in front of me, but Emil Kushbir, if you could take care of the 4 new people who messaged.
Sure thing. So someone just asked, are students who did not have a cumulative GPA of 3.7 but meet those requirements permitted to apply? So I believe in the application, if you do not meet the cumulative GPA of 3.7, we do have a section where you are able to explain why you may have not reached the 3.7. So yes, you can still apply.
So we have another question by Sophie on what platform is the application going live on. So we're going to have a link to the Google form in the slide, as well as hopefully we're going to be sending the slide deck so that you guys can also have the Google form link, and you guys can submit your application through that.
I've sent the link to our Will, who is our awesome VP of marketing. So he'll have that posted hopefully on our Instagram and Facebook very soon.
Also, someone asked if we'll be sending the slideshows. Yes, everyone that submit the RSVP will be getting a copy of the slideshows.
And if you want to watch the recording of this video, we'll also be posting it to the COUHR London YouTube channel. Not specifically COUHR London, just go when you go to the search bar, just search COUHR and you should find us.
So someone just asked how many students are accepted in total for this program. So of course, after the initial written application stage, we will have 2 specific interview stages, one that is with just yourself and then one in a group setting. But preferably after talking to Dr. Garcia and Dr. Ansari themselves, they are expecting to have a group around between 3, potentially 4, but 3 is probably the magic number for each. So about 6 students in total.
Oh, we have a pretty hefty question. Any suggestions from you guys for this application? The most I can tell you now is we are expecting to see a very genuine passion for research. And again, we're not expecting you guys to have cured cancer or anything like that. This is supposed to be a stepping stone sort of program. So a launch pad for you guys to get into research. So I would recommend maybe reading a few articles in this field, just so you can get a better feel of what's out there and maybe even switch projects because you find yourself more interested in, for example, data analysis than pediatrics or pediatrics over data analysis. So do your reading and show passion. And it's best if you deliver us an honest story. It's most often obvious when people fabricate details about their lives, and transparency and communication is one of the things we really look for. So make sure you adhere to that.
I'll also recommend is if you guys do not know much about COUHR, just search them up on Google and do some reading and find out more about who COUHR are, what we are, and what our mission is.
I noticed earlier in the chat, we also have a question about work study. And Emil, thank you for pointing that out to me. If you are currently involved in work study, unfortunately, we cannot allow you into the program because we consider that to be an external commitment. This program requires a lot of time. You're looking at around 20 hours per week. And we would rather maximize the time you can put towards your work study and again, also maximize the experience you get from that. At this point, I believe we have addressed all the questions, but if I have missed you, feel free to speak up or type again in the chat. Otherwise, if you just came up with any questions, also feel free to raise your hand. We'll be happy to answer. Going once, going twice. Okay, silence is golden. Let's move on to the next slide. So I've already spoiled you guys the climactic final slide of our presentation, but the deadline to submit is 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on March 23rd, 2022. Over here, we've conveniently provided you with the QR code for those of you who are very eager to get started. And for those of you who will be receiving our slide deck through email later, you will get a convenient link to this form. And these aren't the only ways you can access the form because, again, it will be going up on Facebook and Instagram. So if you follow us there, you will find them. And if you're interested in science in general, careers in science, I know some of you may be looking at med school, that's a very popular thing. But if you guys are looking for alternative careers in science, or if you're looking for bite-sized science that is both accurate and interesting, hot topics in the scientific world, please make sure you give us a follow, comment, and like on COUHR.London on Instagram and COUHR London on Facebook. I see you have a new chat. Yeah, so Emily is our co-president and coordinator of student affairs, my awesome partner in crime, and she is saying that it will also be posted on Facebook and Instagram tomorrow morning. Although, just to give you guys a few extra hours, I'm hoping we can get it posted tonight. Anybody have any other questions? And with that, thank you all for coming. It was a pleasure seeing all your faces tonight, whether your screen was off or your screen was on. Regardless, we felt that you were there in spirit. We can already sense your passion for science and research. Thank you all for your brilliant questions. It shows that we're really working with a very, very, very interested crowd this time. And we cannot wait to see your applications, everybody. We look forward to see how your takes on underrepresentation and diversity will open our eyes to the world around us, and also your appreciation for the topics at hand and how they may tell us to go in a different direction for research. But that aside, thank you all for coming tonight. We could not have been happier to share our amazing program with you guys, and we cannot wait to see what you guys have to say. Take care, everybody. Have a great night and stay safe. You've all been great.
Take care, guys.